Minister, many have struggled through the pandemic dealing with illness, loss, isolation and grief, but for others it was a lifeline. And for the first time in years we saw the numbers of homelessness actually decline. So the question is, how bad does housing policy have to be that a pandemic improves your situation? But that was the case for many families, individuals and families. The government lifted the COVID eviction ban back last April, and everyone knew what would happen when you lifted an eviction ban, that we would again have a situation where homelessness would rise month on month, back to where we left off pre-pandemic. The housing crisis continues to deepen, with rents in my own county and Mayo up from 90% from the lowest point. According to the latest daft.ie report, they increased 16% in the last year alone, and yet we don't have any designated rent pressure zones. It's almost impossible to keep up with the number of people contacting my office, and I'm sure other people's office, just seeking help to find a roof over their heads. And it's a really, really desperate situation, a situation like I have never seen before in all of my time as a public representative. The eviction ban is not a silver bullet which will mean that the world to families currently fearing being evicted into homelessness. And the measure still requires people to respect the property and continue paying their rent, obviously. So we need to keep this in proportion when we're talking about the impact it will have on landlords. And I'm not talking about landlords because I do see this. I talked to a woman in Castlebar last week who was a landlord herself, who had one house, and she told me, she said, in all conscience, I cannot raise the rent because I know my tenant cannot afford it. And there are many responsible landlords there, but there are others who are exploiting the situation out of face. I know of professional carers that work full-time and share a room with 5 other people, particularly in cities. English language students are often packed into overcrowded conditions by unscrupulous landlords. And I fear a minority of landlords that never cared about the overcrowding situation might now use the loophole to evict renters. While overcrowding is a serious issue, the government suddenly concerned by people living in these conditions ring hollow. There is a window of opportunity here now with this necessary intervention, but there's just a window of opportunity. And if the whole situation is not escalated in terms of increasing the supply side, we will again have another cliff edge come March. That has to be fixed. We also have to lift the income thresholds. There are nonsense, and that report is on the Minister's desk that needs to be published. So we have this opportunity. It will be an absolute failure upon the failure that's already there if this period isn't taken to make these interventions count for people so that they have something as basic as shelter come March and April of next year.